Could the government force people to get a coronavirus vaccine once it arrives? How a legal expert says the state could make your life miserable if you don't.
And distance learning is already a challenge. How at-home school works for students without a home.
And a car stopped in the North County carrying nearly $1 million in cash.
ABC 10 News at 6 starts now.
As we race to develop a coronavirus vaccine, some major questions are emerging. Good evening, I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. A lot of people are wondering if the government could force people to get it, or could people who refuse get banned from stores or lose their jobs? ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl spoke with a legal expert to get some answers.
Imagine a world where you have to get vaccinated and show proof to go shopping, board a plane, or just go to work. Legally, it could happen, says University of San Diego law professor Dov Fox.
States can compel vaccinations in more or less intrusive ways. They can limit access to schools or services or jobs if people don't get vaccinated. It could force them to pay a fine or even lock them up in jail. Those measures have been adopted in other countries like France, but not so far in the United States.
It all dates back to a Supreme Court case in 1905. The court held that Massachusetts could fine people for not getting vaccinated against smallpox. That case became the basis of vaccine requirements at schools across the country.
Courts have found that when medical necessity requires it, the public health outweighs the individual rights and liberties at stake.
Just last year, New York City passed an ordinance fining people for not getting a measles vaccination. But there's a big difference between what states have the power to do and what Congress could do.
There are these questions, separation of powers, Commerce Clause questions.
Professor Fox says a federal vaccine requirement would probably get shot down by the current Supreme Court based on a 2012 ruling on the Affordable Care Act. That means we could have a patchwork of different vaccination requirements in different states. Professor Fox says states would need to allow exemptions for people with legitimate medical risks like pregnancy, but not exemptions for other reasons.
Religious exemptions, philosophical ones, have largely been overridden in the name of public health.
However, Professor Fox says recent protests over face coverings show there's a big risk of a backlash here. And just because states have the power to require vaccinations doesn't mean it's the best public policy. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
And legal experts say that private businesses would have the authority to fire workers who don't want to get vaccinated for personal or religious reasons. Companies would just need to show that there are significant costs at stake for having unvaccinated employees.
The state is blaming a technical glitch for a backlog of up to 300,000 unprocessed COVID-19 cases. Today, California's health secretary said a server outage 2 weeks ago created a delay in lab records coming into the reporting system. And that means counties haven't had some of the data they need to monitor and respond to the virus in local communities.
We expect that over the next 24 to 48 hours, that the backlog that is between 250,000 and 300,000 records will be resolved, giving us a better sense of the total number of tests that were delayed.
A new COVID-19 reporting system is being developed, and this glitch just involves cases. Hospitalization and death data is collected in an entirely different way.
And that backlog of results is now coming in, which is skewing our daily case numbers. The county reported 652 new cases today. That brings our total to 31,700. There were also 3 new deaths, bringing that total to 586. We are hearing directly from leaders of a San Diego high school suing the state for the right to hold in-person classes this fall. ABC 10 News reporter Jennifer De La Cruz explains why the school officials say they are ready to reopen safely.
A lawsuit filed Thursday by St. Augustine High School taking aim at Governor Gavin Newsom over how schools will reopen in fall. The school sending us this video from President Ed Hearn making that announcement to families.
The board of directors, by a 15-1 vote, made the decision to file a lawsuit against the state of California to get our boys back in their seats.
The lawsuit filed by the school and 7 families claims online learning has negative effects on students' education, social and emotional development.
We know that our students were starting to suffer towards the end of the school year. and they were suffering from social isolation.
It argues that if grocery stores and childcare can reopen, schools should be able to open in person too. St. Augustine says they successfully held summer and athletic programs for more than 400 students. In addition to enforcing masks and social distancing, they installed UV lights to sanitize the air inside classrooms and are frequently disinfecting surfaces. Hearn says throughout that 6-week summer program, they did not have a single case of COVID-19 reported.
We have great confidence that when we open in the fall, we have learned a great deal about how to run a very safe environment here at the school.
The suit joins a growing list of schools and companies suing the state over pandemic-related restrictions. On July 30th, a San Diego hairstylist joins an existing lawsuit by business owners fighting to continue indoor operations. On July 21st, parents from San Diego and LA County filed a joint suit fighting for in-person learning to resume in fall. Classes at St. Augustine are scheduled to start on August 25th.
Saints needs to get back to face-to-face, heart-to-heart teaching.
Jennifer Dela Cruz, ABC 10 News.
St. Augustine officials tell us if families don't feel comfortable sending their kids back to school, they do have the option to continue online learning. And ABC 10 News is committed to helping San Diego families navigate the challenges of virtual learning. So join us tonight at 7:30 for a Safely Back to School special. Educators, experts, and everyday parents will reveal the best ways to keep your child engaged, educated, healthy, and thriving.
The city attorney's office has shut down an Airbnb rental in Bankers Hill. There have been more than a dozen reports of large parties at the home on 2nd Avenue. Many of those gatherings reportedly included people without masks. City Attorney Maura Elliott filed a lengthy complaint against the owner and property manager. Our attempts to reach them were unsuccessful. Tonight at 7 o'clock, you will hear some of the horror stories from neighbors. You have until midnight to apply for emergency financial assistance to pay your rent. The one-time program provides up to $4,000 per household. Families with past due or upcoming rent payments are eligible. Payments are expected to be distributed in the next few weeks. And we talked with one of the groups that's helping organize the distribution. They say they're trying to lend a helping hand to some of the people hit the hardest.
A lot of the people that are coming in work in the hotel and restaurant industry, a lot of different service industries and construction as well. So those industries have pretty much stopped. They've been receiving unemployment, but that's been paying for their day-to-day necessities.
You must prove that you're not currently receiving any rental subsidies and your income was impacted by the pandemic. You can find a link to the application on our website, 10news.com, in the Resource Center.
Free COVID-19 testing is finally coming to the San Ysidro border crossing. Local hospitals asked federal officials for this months ago when the beds were filling up with COVID patients. That help never arrived. So now the county is moving forward on its own. The CEO of Scripps Health tells KPBS things aren't as bad now as they were.
I'm a little less alarmed than I was when, back in May when we were seeing, close to 50% of the patients in Chula Vista, having crossed the border. That's dropped in almost half. Now, again, we could see another spike.
The initial testing will focus on essential workers coming into the U.S. from Mexico.
And there are tens of thousands of homeless students in San Diego County. ABC 10 News anchor Lindsay Pena looks at how distance learning is affecting this already struggling group.
Learning from home has proved challenging for all sorts of families during the pandemic, but perhaps most of all for those who don't have a home.
Students really getting equal access to their education from a distance is a concern.
Susie Terry is the coordinator of foster youth and homeless education services for the County Office of Education. She says the shift has really magnified the so-called digital divide for students who don't have a reliable place to live.
Having devices they need and having access to the internet.
Terry says roughly 23,000 students within San Diego County identify as homeless, and those numbers are only expected to increase this year.
With schools closed, that effort is going to be even more difficult. Figuring out how to identify who these families are and get them the supports they need.
Terry says one of the first priorities was reaching out to families who were living in cars or shelters.
A lot of those families, as many as possible, have been diverted into hotel through a voucher program that was made available.
And the rest fall under a category that's most common, living with whoever has room, essentially couch surfing. Terry says each school district has dedicated staff that's required to reach out to homeless families to address their unique needs.
Whatever sort of barriers a family is facing around accessing their education equally to other students, the school district has a requirement to work to remove that barrier.
Bottom line, Terry says it's important that families reach out to their child's school and let them know the situation. There is help, but you have to ask for it. Lindsay Pena, ABC 10 News.
The San Diego County Office of Education is still holding a drive for school supplies for family in need, and you can donate at 10news.com. You stay on top of all of the latest developments with COVID-19 by downloading our 10 News app. A free version is available in the App Store.
A fire that burned nearly 10 acres in Chula Vista is out tonight. It started around 12:30 on the outskirts of the Otay landfill. Fire crews pounced on it from the ground to the air. The wind was blowing towards two neighborhoods, but no homes burned. Nobody was hurt either. The cause is under investigation.